Hi, everyone, and welcome back to The Things We Know. Today, we're going to talk about imposter syndrome. And we have wanted to do that episode for a while. We've touched on it in the past, but something happened recently that made it feel a little more urgent. So, Kari, you want to start with that?
I do. And if recent, we mean at least the last year. Lisa and I had already decided we're doing this episode just because there's been so much conversation lately about the state of leadership in the country and how many people are in positions of enormous power with frightfully little qualification for them. So, and the chatter increasingly, as we've seen a lot of things get handled so poorly and dangerously bad. We keep seeing funny memes and also serious conversations about why women should never feel like imposters again, and or men, like why people should never suffer from this idea of feeling like an imposter ever again. Because if somebody who was a Fox Saturday News show host can run the entire military, you could probably do whatever it is you're wanting to do. So we were both like feeling into that and like, and I think it was pulling my hair out one day. I'm like, can we please do that with a lot of exclamation points? And then what's funny about it is in the meantime, I got invited to join a board. And it's called Inclusion Empowers, and it's mainly disability advocacy and programs for kids with disabilities and families. And I'm super honored to do it, and it's the right time for me because it's not a huge time commitment, but it's something I care about, and it's one of the two things that you and I have discussed, like that I'm going to try and focus on instead of trying to focus on everything. But oh my God, it hit me all of a sudden, the exact thing we wanted to talk about. I was like, well, I haven't been on the board in a long time. And I don't know if my resume is gonna it's a little dated. And it was funny how it snuck in. So I think it's funny, and we'll get into that just because that's how pervasive this is for women.
Yeah, I mean, the cultural conversation has been loud because if you've been paying any attention to, again, who's in power right now, real world stars, reality television stars, Fox News hosts. I mean, we've got a reality television, God us willing, by the time this comes out, it will no longer be relevant. But, we've got fucking Spencer Pratt running for goddamn mayor here in LA. I mean, it
We have
is
like a personal criminal lawyer running the DOJ.
right, right. I mean, it's insane. It's insane. So it's like, who's making these decisions and with what preparations and what qualifications? And so imposter syndrome does start to feel absurd. We are watching people run things that they have no business running with complete confidence and zero self-doubt. And here we are, capable, accomplished women, briefly wondering if we're enough. And that is a big bunch of bullshit.
Right. And the contrast isn't lost on us or anyone who's really paying attention. And it's both funny and maddening, right? And I think it's because the bar for confidence and the bar for competence are not the same bar. And I've joked about that, about like age stuff. And I'm so glad because we're going to get to our guest, and it's always so much more relevant to hear from somebody who is younger than us. But like when I was in my 20s, confidence was high, competence was low in certain things. And other things, like I had a lot of competence in things that I was working on at the time, but like jobs I was going into. So I always thought it was an age thing, but now I'm realizing no, it is a personality thing, I think, and it's just a cultural thing. It's not the same bar. You can be really, really confident, and that will get you far. And we're going to get into that. And I think women have been holding themselves to a standard that nobody is holding a lot of people, especially the people currently in charge to, and in corporations too. And so this is just a little bit of what this episode is about, but it's going to get even better because we have a great guest.
So again, this is not a new conversation. Imposter syndrome was first named almost 50 years ago, and it is still showing up in the same places, in the same ways, for the same reason. There is a commencement address from 2023 at Smith College by Reshma Saujani, founder of Girls Who Code. I remember coming across this and just like sending it to every young girl I knew. The address is called Imposter Syndrome is Not a Scheme. We will be putting it in our stories this week. Sorry, it's called Imposter Syndrome is a Scheme, Not a Syndrome. a
Mm.
scheme. And so we're going to get into what that means and why it matters. And I'm sure we all have a lot to say about it.
Yes. So we have a very special guest joining us who has a lot to say about this. And I think it's just going to take this idea we have to a much higher level for us, especially from where she sits, which is a very different vantage point than ours. She was here in season 2 for an episode called Barbie in the Real World, and we are so glad to have her back.
Hey, Charlotte is my daughter. She is a songwriter, a performer, an actress. She has performed at some of the most iconic venues in LA, including the Viper Room and the Whiskey. She does this with her all-female band, the Deffades, who are as powerfully talented as she is. And yet, like you and I were talking about this, right? Like
Mm.
if you're friends with me on Facebook and you see all the shit that Charlotte's doing, I mean, she's got 2 jobs, both of which she really, really wanted. One of them for our Bravo watchers is that Sir. But here she does. She does deal with imposter syndrome regularly and has very recent stories to tell. So, Charlotte, yay, welcome back.
Hey, happy to be here. Happy to be here.
Thank you. It's so fun to spend time with you. Okay, so we're going to geek out on a little bit of like facts that and research that's been done. I'm not saying we did the research, the research that's been done that we want to share. But before we get into that, I want to hear from you. Like, where are you on this topic right now? And does imposter syndrome feel like something you and your peers live with actively, or something that comes and goes? Like, what does it actually feel like for you, and how is it in your life?
Yeah. Well, I think first off, I want to say that luckily, I'm surrounded by many artists. I like to surround myself with creative people. And I think literally every single one of my friends, we've had a discussion about feeling some type of imposter syndrome, especially living in LA, living in big cities where you have the opportunity to break through and you have the connections and like the chances will come upon you where you can break through into a space, and no matter how many things you've accomplished or your amount of experience, you more often than not, at least the people that I have talked to about it, we walk into these spaces and we still question ourselves. Um, and so, like, for instance, for better or for worse, I value myself a lot when it comes to my accomplishments and the things that I've done and the things that I'm going to continue to do. And I put emphasis on that when it comes to how I look at myself and how I'm happy with how I'm showing up in the world. Um, and no matter all these accomplishments I may have done or this next opportunity that I have the chance to act on or anything like that, um, it definitely comes with like a whole framework beforehand of even jumping into anything like getting a job or booking this show or doing things like that. Before I even step into those spaces, I'm already questioning it, and so it can easily dull your confidence, um, because it's like your own self doesn't trust you to do this thing. It's like there's some disconnect there where um it just can become really like, I don't know, suffocating, because it's like, okay, I'm being entrusted to do this, like something is happening where I'm being put in this position where people want me to act on this, um and yet I'm still questioning my own ability to be able to do it. And it can be really frustrating because it takes away from the experience because you're in your own head about it,
Yeah.
rather than being present. I feel like it's really about like kind of the anxiety of like, okay, if this is something that I'm gonna do, like I need to make sure I can actually like that I'm not the imposter in this, or that like someone's gonna figure out that I'm actually not as good as I might look on paper or something like that. Like it's it's very convoluted because it sucks. It's not a great feeling. It's not a great feeling.
Mm. Thank you for sharing that, because I think that's helpful for everyone to hear. You articulated that so well.
Oh,
And you hear that in interviews, like you'd hear that on Charlie Rose and other interviews for a long time. Like, someone's going to find out that I can't do this.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we're obviously presenting this as women, but I mean, I know plenty of men too. I think the difference, and we'll get into this, is they leap scared sometimes in a way that sometimes women we hold ourselves back, right? So again, we are 2 Gen X women, you're Gen Z, and we came up really understanding or believing or being told that we can do anything. That our generation had broken through, and yet here we are, still talking about imposter syndrome. And I mean, probably the sort of the same things our mothers felt, but certainly mothers who got out and worked in, maybe not so much stay at homes. I don't know. But um, does it feel different to you? Like when you think about grandma, like, does it feel different now to you than it maybe did to Carrie and I back in the day?
Imposter syndrome?
Yeah. Like, do you think it should have been solved by now? Like, are you like, why the fuck are we still dealing with this?
Yeah. Well, kind of something we were talking about before we hopped on the recording is kind of that when I think about how your generation dealt with it and then how my generation is dealing with it now, I don't particularly think like, oh, it should be fixed. Like, I feel like this is like red, like, because I feel like imposter syndrome is an aspect of OCD, of anxiety, of like things that are bigger than just like in the same way. Yes, it could be part of mental health, but it's bigger because this is like part of the system that we're in.
Right.
And we were kind of touching on this, but like I just because of this patriarchal society, women can feel like they can only go so far. And in what you were saying with like how men might have more of that leap of faith despite not having like an outcome or a result in mind, men can do that because they know that, especially white men, they will have something to fall back on, which is the fact that they're a white man.
Yeah.
Versus women, you know, we could take that leap, but there's a lot more at risk for us. I feel like, especially when it comes to careers and when it comes to, you know, especially because we're usually working under men, like there's we all want that. I feel like all women have that leap of faith and that kind of intuition to do so, especially because we have such strong intuition. But that doesn't mean that when we do it, it's gonna, actually come to fruition in a way that it would for a mediocre man.
Right.
So I feel like when you ask like that question, it's not that it's not solved or anything. I just think it's so much bigger than just
Yeah.
generational issue.
Yeah.
I'm getting all worked up thinking about how we keep hearing the word meritocracy and how there would be a lot of men listening to you right now going, see, like, that we're not privileged. We're not getting those positions. They were all getting taken away when like, that's actually not true. If you look at like law firms and boards and, C-suite stuff, it's still predominantly white men. And so it's so interesting, like that whole thing about when you're privileged, equality and true meritocracy feels like oppression. But they say it's a meritocracy, but it's really entitlement. And so it is fascinating because like I like what you said, it's nature and nurture. Like some of it is just some of our neurological makeup that if we're really like almost too self-aware, we're going to overly question things, and that's going to be just part of our pathology and like part of family dynamics, maybe birth order, and then gender, and then but also it's just patriarchy coming downhill. It's so fascinating. So we're going to get into some of this that's going to validate that and probably frustrate us, and then we want to come back to your specific experiences throughout, because I think that'll be interesting.
So imposter syndrome was named in 1978 by psychologists Pauline Ross Clance and Susan, I'm going to say Imes, maybe?
Imes? I don't know. Yeah.
We talk about, yeah. I'm always feeling imposter syndrome trying to make sure I say these names right. Anyways, they were studying high achieving women who, despite objective evidence to their success, believed they were frauds and lived in fear of being found out. I mean, that is literally the definition of imposter syndrome. So almost 50 years, and here we are. Now, that being said, it's not like imposter syndrome didn't exist before 1978. However, one of the things that the Instagram post that I'll post talks about is it became very prevalent at a time when women were now in the workplace. So this idea of we can have it all. And, as a woman who was working and also leading their household, like I'm sure there were times that any given woman feels like she's failing at everything because she doesn't feel like we want to give our all to whatever we're doing. and we're not giving our all at work because we're worried about our kids at home or we're thinking about work when we're talking to our kids. So I think it's there. I understand where it comes from, but it's still incredibly infuriating.
Yeah. There's a 2023 New Yorker article that went back and interviewed them
Oh,
decades
wow.
later. And one of the things Clance said, stop me. She said, every time she hears the phrase imposter syndrome, it lodges in her gut. I just went like this, a gut, because they never intended it to be a syndrome at all. She called it an experience, not a pathology. They wanted to normalize it, not medicalize it, right? And so calling it a syndrome does that. And the reframe matters, I think, because syndrome implies something is wrong with you and nothing's wrong with you.
Absolutely. So again, in 2021, Harvard Business Review published one of its most read articles in history. Stop telling women they have imposter syndrome.
Hey.
And honestly, I have been really worried ever since I saw that Instagram post.
You've been
When
trying
somebody
to-
somebody talks to me about imposter syndrome, I'm like, I'm gonna stop you right there.
Yeah, right.
Um, I am gonna have a really hard time with these two names, but it's by Rushka Tolshan and Jodi Ann Burley. Nearly a million reads, translated into multiple languages. Brene Brown had both authors on her podcast, and the core argument, calling it imposter syndrome, puts the burden on women to fix themselves rather than the workplace and the systems that are giving, to my point, women legitimate reasons to feel like they don't belong. Their line was imposter syndrome directs our view towards fixing women at work instead of fixing the places where women work. Whew. I mean, okay, we're done. Thanks for joining us.
Good episode, y'all.
Dang.
Like that. Okay. So Charlotte, I want to ask you about that. So like hearing that this, and you know this, that the system is the problem and not the woman. Does that resonate where you sit?
Yes, I will say that is obviously that quote is connected to a workplace as a whole. Like an office space is kind of what my mind's going to, and a corporation kind of aspect where, for instance, for me, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of the imposter syndrome I face is within creative spaces. So it feels like it's not even a part of it. And that's why I kind of connected back to mental health, is because for me, I'm feeling it not even within a job in a corporation, but I'm feeling it just within myself as an artist and being like, oh, I'm not good enough to be here, like everyone's better than me and I shouldn't be here, like I'm just here out of pity or things like that, like very like cruel thoughts. But that resonates with me because it is a part of the system that's larger than us, but it can also just come down to the individual and like being in a space that you really want to be in and you just fear that you're not good enough. Is kind of where I'm coming from. Like that's very true, especially when you're trying to build your career.
But so I hear you, and I agree. Your personal experience sort of is coming from there. But thinking about, especially as a musician in an all-female, post-punk band, and you're playing, the Viper Room or the Whiskey, like, have you ever felt because I've never asked you this. Like, have you ever walked into sound check or something and felt like there's sort of the oh, eye roll or whatever? Like, oh, look at these cute girls.
Women can play music.
Right. I will say this. I do know for a fact at the Viper Room, you blew some people away because you guys get up there and it's like, oh, three, pretty girls playing rock music, and we overheard some men being like, God damn,
Good. Good. Wait, I didn't even know that. That's so funny.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that when you were saying that, that is fascinating to watch you say. I mean, in my world, it's really just within me. And I've watched you at VAPA perform, lead, but and like I've seen the videos your mom's posted of your jazz. What's it called?
Vocal jazz. Yeah.
Vocal jazz. And then I've seen what you've been doing at LMU and your performances with your band. And like your mom's saying, I mean, those are all worlds where like there didn't used to be a lot of female directors and playwrights and, screenplay, people like these are still, it's still kind of like, oh, wow, look at her kind of reaction to it, right? Even parts and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it's fascinating that like, and you maybe you can counter this, like maybe you know a lot of male performers who go through the same thing as you. But I'm just so curious about that, like how much it's so ingrained in the culture that we just assume, no, this is just me.
Yeah. It's just second nature.
Yeah.
Well, to kind of answer your question there, Mom, it's honestly, and this is another whole different episode if anything, but the main reaction I feel when I like when me and the band go and sound check or we're networking with other bands that are around us. Yes, it's a hint of like, oh, you're all girls and you can play music. Wow, like, oh, that's so, whoa, holy shit, I didn't know that could happen. It is kind of that, especially from like if we're interacting with another like male group. Um, it feels like they're a little belittling, but also most of the time, like for instance, playing at the Whiskey, we've played with some older male groups, and it's felt more like it's on the age factor than it is like the gender factor of just kind of like, oh, we're older than you and we've played the Whiskey a million times or something like that. But honestly, the main reaction we get is sexually driven, is like I remember we were in the dressing rooms at the Whiskey at our second show, and the headlining band, which had a connection to Aerosmith, um, they came into our dressing room because they wanted to take photos in there because it was like, I don't know, just that specific room they wanted to take photos in. Um, and then they were like, "Oh wait, let's take some pictures with the pretty girls." Like, and then they're calling us chicks and they're calling us all these things where it's just like, okay, yeah, cool.
And you can either play that part or not.
Exactly.
And then the bar cleared out when they played after the Deffades.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's less of like the initial feeling I get is less of like imposter syndrome and more like, ooh, they're into pretty girls or whatever.
But you can't help but let me rephrase this. I can't help but assume that also factors in though, right? Because if the reaction isn't like, "Oh, cool. Tell me about what guitar you play, what kind of music do you play?" and instead is pretty girls, all of a sudden now this isn't about your talent, this is about how you look. Oh, you got the show because you guys look good, not because you play well or you bring in a crowd, which is absolutely why you get the shows at the Whiskey at this point, right? So it's like it is like this like subgenre of imposter syndrome, a way to belittle you so that you don't both think you belong there.
And then the emphasis goes on the superficial, and it's like you start to have imposter syndrome on your own looks and your own appearance. You're like, oh, I'm not pretty enough to be here, or it's like a waterfall. It's never ending.
I was just gonna say that I'm glad you guys touched on that, because as I was listening to it, I mean, it's a distant memory, but I was in my 20s once, and I remember having someone like respond in a work setting, where I was gonna be like speaking in front of people, respond about my looks and not my content, which made me then feel like I have to work that much harder to prove that like I'm smart and I know what I'm talking about. And that sounds like a weird, like lame little complaint, but that's what I hear when I hear that. If they like start talking about your looks, you're like, well, we'll show you how talented and how like skilled we are, right? I don't know if that does that for you, but like that's what that made me feel. Like,
no, yeah,
we're not like, who cares what we look like? We rock.
Yeah. That's why it's so gratifying when we go on stage and we are more than they expected, because it's like, yeah, we can actually do stuff too. It's like, we don't just need to sit here and be pretty, like we can also rock out.
So when you're done with a show like that, do you feel like, I mean, obviously you're jazzed and you're like adrenaline's flowing, but now you guys are getting ready to start playing again. Again, by the time this goes out, you will have already played another sort of iconic bar here in LA, the Mint. Um, do you find it starting to creep back in? Like, can you go back to the Whiskey in the Vibe Room and remember how well it went and grab onto that so that you can have the confidence and not feel imposter syndrome?
Um, I think accomplishments like that and having the background of, performing at this venue and that venue, um, makes my confidence go up when I enter, like when I'm entering a space. I'm like, because I got solid evidence, like we're saying, qualifications of like, I can do this. Um, but I will say, I mean, unless I feel so like astronomically good about like how the show went, it's very rare that I don't leave the stage and the first thought in my head is ooh, I should have done that better, I should have done this better. Ooh, I'm like, it's, and once again, that might just be how I'm wired. I have a very toxic brain, we know this. But um I remember in vocal jazz, for instance, one of the rules that our music director kind of set up for us was you can't say anything bad about the performance 20 minutes after it. And you just kind of have to let yourself sit with what happened, no matter what, and just don't talk
I like
about
that.
it. And
Shout
that's
out to Drew Lewis, such an amazing teacher. Thank you.
but it's stuff like that where the imposter syndrome comes in like later,
Mm.
like delayed gratification.
So this is a perfect transition to this next study. Again, I've heard this before, but it still floors me every time. A Harvard study found that women with 8 years of experience in a field rated their own confidence. Sorry, this is almost laughable. Their own confidence as the same level at the same level as men with 0 to 1 year of experience. So 8 years versus less than one. And we've talked about this before. Research consistently showed that men apply for jobs when they feel like they meet about 60% of the qualifications, and women wait until they're close to 100%. I'm all for going in for 60%. Like a job description is a wish list, but we need to do that too. I'm not trying to bring men up to the 100%. We're trying to bring us down to the 60, right? The media has often framed this as a confidence problem, but some researchers and Kari and I push back on that. Women are
Yeah.
being more realistic, more strategic, and more aware of how they will actually be evaluated. And that's the problem. It's not the confidence, it's the system that they are navigating.
I mean, it's funny. I just want to say, listening to that, even though like I knew this, but like hearing it said back, it makes me think about the industry that Charlotte's in, because that's who always inspires me. Just cracking up hearing them say, like, and they said, "Do you ride horses?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And then I got the role, and then I had to learn how to ride horses. You know what I mean? Like I've always tried to go for that mentality that I've heard from a lot of actors. It's like, say yes and learn it.
Yeah.
And as a coach, we encourage people to say yes and then like figure out what their talk's going to be about, versus like staying like until I'm ready, and then they do nothing because we're never really ready. And so there is something about that 60% qualification and going for it that Lisa and I are also saying we admire. It's just so stark, the difference, right? Like if we could all learn to do that, because I think if I think it was Stacy who would say, like, if like I'm not enough, none of us are enough, right? Like we're all doing the best we can, and we're all figuring it out as we go. We certainly learned that in parenting.
Well, I feel like I have totally kind of maybe found the medicines for this imposter syndrome, because it is doing things like that where just saying, I mean, I will say you probably shouldn't lie on your resume and be like, oh, I can do this, and then you can't. You can obviously learn it, but that is kind of like not not great to do. But in general, that is a good step where you can just kind of like hop into it and trust that you can learn it, because stuff like that builds your confidence. And I feel like I've really been exercising that within the past year, just like I don't know, I've never worked in a restaurant before,
Yeah,
but I'm
can we take a step? I want you to kind of share what's happened in the last couple months, because this is a perfect example of like going after what you want even though you're scared. So would you mind sort of sharing that a little bit?
um yes, where do you want me to
Well, I mean, so applying for the first job, you have the job at Crossroads Trading, which is retail. That was one thing, right? Like retail, it's like, okay, you know how to do that. But again, going after the job at Sir was kind of unexpected. And so do you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Yeah, I just, within the past, I've had a pretty crazy like past year, and I had to deal with a lot about myself and what I wanted and what I want my life to look like, especially entering my 20s. It's that time where I just kind of am like, ooh, oh yeah, there's life to live and I don't know what to do with it. It's it's that kind of time, and I just kind of realized that I'm like, of course I'm going to be scared to do a bunch of different things or to tackle on this project or try out for this thing. Like, of course I'm going to be scared to do these things, but I just kind of have to do it anyways. Like, just kind of pushing through the fear and using every amount of bravery that I've built up over just like my course of life, and despite not feeling confident in certain things, just kind of pushing through it. And so, I've made a few life decisions within the past couple months that have, you know, luckily worked out pretty well for me, where I auditioned for our first play of my next semester of college, the first play of the season. I auditioned for it. It's a Greek tragedy. I don't know anything about Greek tragedy, but I memorized the monologue, went in, got a call back, and got a part in the play, despite not knowing anything about Greek tragedy.
And nobody else did either, right?
Nobody else does
Yeah.
either. So that's like, it's, Greek tragedy is not always done in a collegiate place, and so it's okay. I went in knowing that I wasn't going to be the only one. But that worked out well. And then I had been applying for a bunch of jobs. I got Crossroads, a job that I've always wanted or always thought of as like a first job for me, was retail. And although that job is simpler, I've also never worked a POS system, and I'm learning how to do that. And then, going into a restaurant that we've loved for many years, and just kind of on the whim being like, are you guys hiring? Not even because I have a job, like not even because I like needed it, but just because I was like, are you guys hiring? And then took my shot with that, and just went in with being unattached and just kind of letting the chips fall where they fall. And there's something about that unattachment that is, I think, really beneficial, because you're able to just take the experience as the experience, and add it to your catalog of things that you tried out. And then, I'm just in a very grateful place that many of them have worked out in my favor, and now it's just kind of figuring it all out, and scheduling my days to, work life balance, but also be really excited about what I'm being offered already. So yeah, it's just doing things scared is good. You should do it scared because you care. And then the reward is even greater. Or if it doesn't happen, or if the result is something that you didn't want or didn't expect, at least you have this experience. You have this qualification now. Like, okay, well, I did it. I know I can push myself to do it. And that is something that builds your confidence within itself, because it's like, okay, well, I did it scared and I still did it. Like there's just something so great about that alone. So that's honestly
Mm.
my biggest tip as of right now, as I'm entering this new era of my life, is just like, do it scared. And you'll
It's it's so impressive, and there's so much to learn from that world you're in, because you like really have to build your calluses around rejection, so might as well keep going for those no's, and you'll get more yeses if you go for things than if you don't.
yeah.
If you wait
Yep.
to be qualified or the right person, you don't. I think that's so inspiring. I was going to say, when you were sharing that, Lisa, it just reminded me of a very funny story. I'll make it really quick. But Brendan's freshman year roommate, who ended up just becoming this legendary friend of theirs, who sadly did pass away, he just lived his life to the fullest. He put on his college application that he was like a state championship water polo player, and they have a really good team. Like when Brendan was on it, they went to Division 3, but they were national champs. And so like everybody was super excited about this guy. The coaches, like they were telling the rest of the team. Brendan was like, oh, he's my roommate. And he went to the first practice and he was practically drowning. Like he had no skills. Like he just put that on his application, thought he could wing it. And
Wow.
it was like such a bomb. And like he's like, oh well. Like
I mean, I think the unattachment, she's nailed it, right? Like that's the
right.
thing, right? The unattached, because if you get attached to the outcome and it doesn't turn out, then that just feeds the belief again that you're an imposter, right? So
Right.
if you just go, you know what, I'm going to do this, I'm going to see what happens. If it turns out great, if it doesn't, I tried
Right.
it. I did it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll be maybe a little less scared to try again despite the rejection. You've already had the worst, you've already dealt with the
Yeah.
no. And so if you get
Yeah.
a no, it's just like the first one. It's okay.
At least she didn't drown.
Yeah.
I know. That's so funny.
I like his confidence as a
I
man.
know. I know. Everybody's like, if I could go forward with that.
That's
Just more geeking out stuff. Like I thought this UCL study found that men are 34% more likely to be in top jobs by mid-career. And that is from over like maybe overconfidence or confidence, literally starting in childhood is accounting for that gap. The system rewards confidence whether or not it's earned. So here is what I keep coming back to. Is the goal for women to get more confident, or is it to stop rewarding unearned confidence? I think they're very different problems with different solutions, because I think what we're talking about in like confidence, like actually if we could balance out how we're raising new generations and like really kind of this idea that we do in our coaching all the time, which is like stretch yourself, go for the things that you might have to learn along the way. If we could normalize that more across genders, like I think we would see that gap disappear. But I think this is really speaking to, at least up until now, like the patriarchal gendered ways that boys grow up going, sure, I'll try that.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that's part of this, right? It's the idea that I have no problem with men going after something at 60%. And I'm not blaming women for waiting till 100, but could we start going at 90%, 70%, right? Because if a man is at his top job by his mid-career, I mean, obviously there's a lot more that goes on to that, in terms of women being looked at. But if we could just borrow some of that confidence of these mediocre men, it would at least help, right? There's a lot more going against women in a corporate situation than just men having unearned confidence. But we would try different things. I don't know. What thoughts on that? Do you have any feelings about that, or are we just being redundant?
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, you're right. There's many things at hand, and so it's like a woman can go in with all the confidence in the world, and then she's belittled by being too demanding, or too
Right.
bossy. They don't like to see us confident. I mean, for instance, right now we're watching Mad Men, or they're rewatching Mad Men, and there are so many strong female characters in that show, and we're only second season, I think. For me, this is my first watch, so we're pretty early on, and so I know a lot of these characters have a lot more development to come to. But this is set in the 50s, and it's corporate workplace, and all the men are in charge and all the women are talked to like they are nothing. And even the strongest female characters are still being used for sexual pleasures by the men. Like they can do all this secretarial work perfectly, but their job is still feminized, and it doesn't matter as much, even though without them the company wouldn't run.
Right.
But there's no emphasis on that. So there's so many factors at play, because we just a patriarchal society that we live in. But yeah, I feel like it's hard because women, we have the confidence, but then as soon as we showcase it, we are
Labeled.
Mm.
I will say, rewatching Mad Men 20 years later, it's a weird thing that gives me a little bit of hope, in that I am seeing things now that I didn't see even 20 years ago. And I wasn't a spring chicken 20 years ago, right? So it is interesting, because I do think this stuff is being brought to the forefront, and I see it differently now than I did even back then. Like, I saw the misogyny and everything back then, but it's even more stark now. And again, I think it's because of the world we're currently living in.
Yeah, totally. I've seen this like in so many different places, as you have, because I know I think of a few people you coach, but like when someone gets a promotion and they're like, I don't think I can do this. Like I have a friend who's just a badass attorney who has a really big job with an uh kind of a Google subsidiary. And she's just constantly like, they're going to find out any day I can do this. I'm like, well, who else could? And she's like, oh, you're right. And so I was thinking about that. And like, So there's a lot of different ways it happens. There's you get something, the way we were talking about it, you get something that you worked hard for that you really wanted, and then you start questioning whether you were the right, like whether you deserve it or whether you can do it. And or that like everyone else is better at it or knows more than you. And so obviously that's what I noticed with this board thing. It was like, okay, I know I'm qualified, but it's been a long time and how it looks. It's like, it's not, it just slides in quietly and rearranges your thinking. So like Charlotte and I have talked about this. I'm curious, Lisa, have you ever experienced this? Because I don't feel like you share things like that. And or I'm forgetting. Like, do you have experiences like this that you can relate to?
I mean, probably. I, I, I mean, I don't know. My gut says no. My gut says no. And I, even that, then that feels like imposter syndrome because I'm like, what? You thought of one?
Yeah, the book.
Oh, yeah.
But
Yeah,
that
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
really imposter syndrome, but you were like, oh, I don't know. And then, she loved it.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
everyone
yeah.
loved it.
That's
Yeah.
true. I mean, that was so far out of my comfort zone that it wasn't that I didn't think I should be in the book, but I was like, is this hitting the note it's supposed to hit? For sure. So that's true. That would probably be the closest thing. Yeah, that'd probably be the closest thing to feeling imposter syndrome because I don't fancy myself a writer, and so I don't, it's like what who did I think I was to say yes to this? Um, but most things that I do, but also what I like about that for me is that it helps me feel that way for my clients, right? Or with Charlotte. I mean, we've had a lot of conversations going out for Antigone, applying for jobs, when the whole SIR thing happened, we were both laughing about it, but also I was like, but remember, you did A, B, C, so you could do D and E and G, you know what I mean? Or an F. I was trying to get in alphabetic order. So I really like try to use my confidence for good in that I believe I just had this conversation earlier this morning. Somebody said to me, it's so weird because you have more confidence in me than I do. And that's interesting. I was like, it's kind of my superpower. That's what it says on my website. So I try to take that and like infuse it into the people that I work with and or my children and or my
Mm,
husband.
I love that. I mean, it is good. I was just thinking when Charlotte was sharing some of the things she was sharing, I'm like, and she lives with a coach. That's so great. But like you live with a coach and you're open to it. There's a
Yes.
difference.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's a difference. Um, I'm like, oh, I hope you ask me. Um,
Please, 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 please.
I want to skip back just because we've covered some of this, but please stop me if you feel like I'm skipping too much. But I kind of want to talk about what actually helps.
Yes.
So I think, as we've discussed, it shows up in different ways. You hear someone you care about being like, I don't know if I should go for this, or I got this, but why did they pick me? I'm like, freaking out or having a panic attack. Naming it out loud to someone you trust really, really helps. It slays the demon like in half, I think. Because the voice loses power when you say it out loud and hear how it sounds. Externalizing it makes it easier to question. In my case, because she's like, send me your resume, and I took forever and like, kind of finally worked on it and looked at it, and I was like, okay, I know I can do this. But like I had to read it out loud to myself. But naming it out loud to someone you trust is even better.
No question, because then that person can reflect it back to you
Right.
for sure.
Right.
I think it's fascinating. You didn't tell me about this.
I was waiting because of this episode.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I thought I would have been like, I'm a big hype person for you. So.
I know.
Yeah, no, naming it is always so important. Build the evidence. I just sort of said this, right? Like we walked through, all the things with each thing that Charlotte did, Antigone, Crossroads, Sir, it was, but remember when you've done this in the past. So building the evidence, looking at what is actually true. Again, not necessarily as a forced exercise, but just really genuinely accounting for what you've done. Again, I had this conversation this morning. Know what you've done, know what you've built, what you've survived. I mean, that's the other thing too, right? We talk all the time about critter brain. The critter imposter syndrome is critter brain on steroids, and you have to remind it that you survived trying these other things as well. Any thoughts on either one of those two? Naming it and building evidence?
No, I completely agree. Like I was saying with the building the evidence, I was talking about that a little bit earlier, where it's just kind of like, to counteract it, you need evidence of how you've done it before. It helps. Like I think one of the biggest cases of imposter syndrome that I felt was when I got the lead in my senior musical. I was like, how, why, when, like it made sense because I worked myself through that theater program, and I was, a leader within that program. I think definitely within my year, and like I wasn't shocked that I was given this opportunity. I knew that these directors and teachers trusted me to take on a role like that, but I was just like, I didn't think I could do it. Like I was like I remember in our first read through of the script, I was like, there's no way I can do this. Like this is gonna be next level for me. And yet doing something so hard like that and then going into college as a theater major, that gave me the confidence to go into college feeling secure in my abilities. And something like that is so incredibly helpful. And now I go into other theater productions and I think back um on that final production of my senior year, and I have that photo evidence of like, I've done hard things before, I can do it again.
So let me ask
Amazing.
one additional question. Oh,
Sorry,
okay.
it scared me. Go ahead.
Scared me. I was like, what?
Okay, let me ask one additional question. You share
Mabel
whatever you
has
want.
no imposter syndrome, by the way.
That's true.
Yes,
She does not.
good.
She's a big dog. Okay. So we kind of, you acknowledged, referenced that you've had a rough year. So, and say what you want and don't say what you don't want. But your confidence took a huge hit with this last year. And so one of the things I'm really loving about this time is that I feel like you're back, right? Like I feel like Charlotte is fucking back. And how and so there's going to be people here who have had that experience too, right? Like maybe they've gone along, they've gotten all the jobs, they've gotten all the things they've ever wanted, and then somehow they have an experience that is debilitating for whatever reason. And now they have to regain their confidence. So what would you like to say about that?
In terms of rebuilding confidence.
Yeah, about the fact that you took such a big hit to your confidence in the last year, and yet as I don't know, you tried, you went in all in anyway. Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, kind of. How did I bounce back?
Yeah, how did you bounce back? Yes.
Well, I think first of all, what I'm going through was, how do I explain it? Because I think what got me out of it, I don't know. I don't know how to, because I'm not out of it. So I'm like, I don't know.
Well, should we name it? I mean, people are going to hear about it
In the book.
in the book.
Okay, everyone. Guess what? Here's the story. Um, Basically, actually around this time last year, literally a year ago yesterday, I guess it was around my birthday, I got diagnosed with anorexia after developing it throughout my first year of college. And a year ago yesterday, I started with my recovery team that I'm still with now. And it made me take off my fall semester of college. It made me quit my summer job that I had. It took away my life in terms of hanging out with my friends and seeing people, and it took away my ability to walk. It took away my ability to walk to a store down the street.
You could physically walk, she just wasn't allowed to.
Yes.
I just want to clarify.
Thank you for that clarification, because that would have been really misleading. But yeah, so I experienced this thing that I was so enveloped in, and then it took away everything from me in a very quick period of time. And then I don't know, with work that I did throughout my fall semester of leave of absence, and then my luckily being trusted to go back to school for my spring semester and just kind of try things out, do minimal classes, still living at home, just little things to ensure that I was going to remain healthy throughout, maybe getting a little bit of life back. Um, Throughout this whole thing, I mean, anorexia is a disease and it will kill every part of you, slowly, literally and figuratively. But it completely tore down every bit of confidence I had, because it was like my own body didn't trust me to just take care of itself. And so it took away every little bit of, confidence I had in myself, because, now my only hobby was, wanting to be smaller, or shrink, take up less space. And so of course, when I feel like something that comes with confidence is that you can walk into a room and fill the space with yourself, and people will you know feel a kind of magnetic, connection to someone that feels so freely themselves, and can take up, space. And so after coming out of like the depths of the disease, and realizing everything that I was missing, it was literally like my motivation just came back to be like, okay, well, I want my life again, and that was like the big part of this process, was just being like, okay, there's more for me to achieve and to want and to get. um and so your question being,
So then how did you get how with being so decimated in your confidence, what did you do so that you could get it back?
well, I think oddly, I just kind of pushed myself out of my comfort zone a lot. Because not only was trying in the process of recovery, that was pushing myself out of my comfort zone a lot, because I was, having to do things that are do things that are normal, like eating, but do it in like, how do I explain it? Like, I mean, I was at war with myself, so I was constantly um fighting off, parts of myself that was being manipulated and distorted through this disease. And so I think what helped me come back was just like, okay, I want my life back, but I also want my life to look like this. And so I just had to really push myself out of my
Mm.
comfort zone by doing things that I was really scared to do. And it started off with small steps, stuff within recovery, like eating and things like that I had to do, which are obviously challenging for me at that time. But doing, stuff like auditioning for, when I returned to school, I auditioned for something, and I was scared to do so because I'd kind of been out of the game of acting for, a few months, just because I had, you know,
Mm.
had something else that was taking up my life. And and so pushing myself out of my comfort zone, knowing that I wanted to do something, I wanted to be back in art somehow, and so I pushed myself to go do that even though I was scared. I pushed myself to eat even though I was scared. It was just kind of like the act of pushing myself out of my comfort zone, and just once again the unattachment to it. Because I don't know, I'm a big believer in, everything happens for a reason. Everything will work out just as it should. What's meant for you will be there, and you won't, the opportunity won't be lost just because you miss this one thing. Like, you're meant to be where you're meant to be. And so I think it was just pushing myself out of my comfort zone was what made me get my confidence back, because it was proof
Mm.
that I could do it. Yeah.
I'm just in awe of you. And I love that everyone gets to hear this, because you just really articulated well that not just the female, the human experience, really. Like, the only way out of things is to go through it, and do it scared, will really pay off.
Mm-hmm.
And and you have great support. And so, like what we were just saying that speaking it out loud to someone else really helps. So, that says a lot about you, that you were open enough to receive the support. I think that that's beautiful. And I think about just anyone listening who I was telling Lisa recently that on this other project that I've been doing, counting down to my reunion, we always ask, like, what's the advice you give your 1991 self? And everyone always tries to say something wise to their younger self. And this one woman said, actually, she has more confidence than me. I would love to ask her, like, where that went, and like how to keep it and all that. And so just listening to you, and hearing what you've overcome, and for anyone listening, it isn't something that goes away forever once you've licked it. Like what I'm so impressed with you is you're recognizing what it looks like and you have tools now. It doesn't mean it won't come back. Like with me, like how did that sneak in? And there's going to be stages and groups that Lisa's going to continue to be invited to, like that other retreat in Palm Springs you went to speak to. Like people are going to continue to want you to lead things that you didn't even picture for yourself. And so we're always going to have a moment of, oh, and like, this is how we recognize it, is we say like, it's what I want. And it has paid off in the past when I go for it anyway. And also there's a lot of memes about this. Like, turns out adulting is just a lot of like Googling stuff. Like, I've been in a neurologist desperate for answers for my son and caught the neurologist Googling shit. And so, I just think, we all can laugh at that and think about Brendan's roommate and just be like, might as well.
Might as well. Sorry, that was a Liam thing. And then this one, I mean, we can't ignore the fact that women heal in community. We say it all the time. Charlotte came to our fall retreat in Chicago last year, and I was just trying to do the math of when that was. It feels like a million years ago. Right. And it is our guiding light for the Best Chapter Yet retreats. And this isn't meant to be a yet again another push for it, but it just is.
I'll plug it. I think like the amount of women that get seen and heard in a group like that leave with way more confidence or determination or decision. Yeah. Because it got reflected back to them like, oh, you are more than qualified. When you walked in here, you already had that going on. It's like, oh, like that's sometimes what we need from our isolation.
Yeah. Again, that reflection, right, goes back to naming it and then having somebody else be like, oh, you got this. Yeah. Huge.
Yes. It's confirmation, not validation,
Yes.
It's really.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So Charlotte, we always like to ask for a song, and it's really fun when it's a songwriter and a musician, but I'm curious, like, do you have songs that when you hear or you play it, that like, are just empowering songs of belonging or just make you feel really good?
Yeah. Is there a favorite cover, you guys? I mean, I know what your song is, but is there a favorite Deffades cover that you love that you just feel like this makes me feel amazing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. There's I think probably we do a cover of this PJ Harvey song that's very female empowered and talks shit on the men.
Sheila and a gig.
Love it.
And I think doing that cover always feels really empowering for us, not only because it is kind of like a fuck you to all the men around us kind of thing, but it also, we just get to go fucking crazy, and Edie on the drums just gets to like, I know it's one of her favorites to play because it is just so fun to play.
And Ruby sings the hell out of it.
The vocal performance is always so great. So there's just something about the energy of that song I think is very empowering. Yeah.
Also, just for reference, we do want to have the Deffades on as an interview. So
I would love it. I was just thinking that, and just for fun, or maybe we should wait on this. I was just thinking, can you explain the name Deffades? Because I love the story.
Oh yes, of course. The Deffades. Maybe I can't tell if it's a good name or not, but it's a reference to the Beatles song "Two of Us." At the very beginning, there's a little studio track of John Lennon referencing a group called Charles Hawtrey and the Deffades. And in that it's spelled like deaf, hard of hearing, and aid, like first aid. But we didn't want to use that exact spelling because not only was it a reference to a group that existed back then, but it's also, we just weren't sure about using the word deaf or using the word aid in a name. We just didn't want to cross any boundaries. And so we wrote it out in our own way. So it's spelled Deffades. So not technically a real word. So that kind of fucked us. But it's search engine friendly.
That's true. And I hope I'm not outing this, but our theme song is going to become a Deffades song.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know that.
I'm so excited.
Reinvent it.
Damn it. Nice.
Yeah. Our theme song will be a rock song soon.
Yeah. It already is.
And so then also you were going to share a song, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
what's your song?
Last time I was on, I did a Strokes song, and this time I'm doing a Strokes song. But it's one of the first Strokes songs I ever heard, called "You Only Live Once." Highly recommend. Great guitar part, great drum part. Lyrics are incredible, but the line I picked is from the second verse, and it's what is it? It's wait, now I'm blanking.
I know, because
blanking.
told me not to take a picture of it, but I did.
But it's probably just right there. Oh, men don't know what they got, and women notice that a lot. Yeah.
And then there was another line though. What was the other?
Well, there's a line right after it, but
yeah.
Yeah, it was, oh, men don't notice what they got. Oh, women think of that a lot. 1,000 ways to please your man, and not even one requires a plan.
Snaps.
Okay, Julie.
Love it. Love it.
He's a Nepo baby, but I feel like still, that, I don't think he leans on that.
But he's politically charged in a progressive way. So.
Very, very progressive.
But yeah, he's a Nepo. He's a little Nepo baby.
But he's also not a mediocre white man, so we'll give it that. So yes, that will obviously be in the show notes. We'll link Deffades Instagram so you can go follow them and see all the fun things they'll be doing this summer. Anything else you want to add about imposter syndrome? Because the reality of it was Kari and I were going to do this alone, and I mentioned it to Charlotte. She's like, I want to be on, and I was like, hell yeah.
No imposter syndrome there.
Yay! I'm so glad. I just want to say thank you. I love spending time with you. And I love having you on here and being honest with us. I think it's just really refreshing. Your wisdom and your just your whole persona is very wise, beyond your years. And go see the Deffades, everyone. Follow them on Instagram, and if you're in LA, go see them. We are so excited for you guys.
One last little piece of, if you could sum it up in one thing, I know what I think it is, but what would be one tip you'd give somebody that is feeling imposter syndrome? Because we can't make you not feel it, but what would be one tip you'd give them?
I'd say actively act against that voice telling you that you can't do it. Recognize it, familiarize it, name it, and then actively make the choice to not listen to it. And phone a friend. If you need help, phone a friend. If you're confused, if you don't know what you're doing, if you feel like you're all over the place and you just need someone outside of yourself to give you a little bit of guidance, it's good to ask for help. So don't let anyone make you feel like you can't ask for help.
Good answers. Yeah. So any of you who are listening that might recognize anything we've said here, no matter what your age, Charlotte is 20. We are in our late 50s. We all experience it. I recognize I'm a confident person. It doesn't mean the voices in my head don't talk. I just don't, I guess, act upon them. So, you're not alone. And the evidence of who you are is real, even when that stupid voice upstairs says something different.
And I'm sure anyone listening knows someone who needs to hear this. Someone standing at the edge of something and talking themselves out of it. Send it to her or him. That is one of the most useful things you can do today. is to validate and to confirm for someone that they can go for the things that they want to stretch themselves towards. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being here.
We'll be back next week. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.